All right, so there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to try to provide a little bit of context before I sort of dive into the analysis. Um, Wallace Stevens is someone who's very interested in perspectivism, which is it's a philosophical train of thought that basically disagrees with the notion that there is an objective reality. And what that means is that anything you perceive is more of a figment of something that you've decided and created based on preconceived notions and sort of projected and attributed onto an idea or object rather than just one objective reality existing for everything. An example of this might be a round circle table. Um, because unless you're standing directly above the table, um, it's not actually perfectly round. It will always appear as an oval when you look at it. But because you know it's a round table, you say that's a round table. Now with perspectivism, it's saying that as long as you're not above the table, it can be an oval table. It's not necessarily round just because you've decided it's round at one point in time. And so I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that, but that's sort of perspectivism. Um, Wallace Stevens, I think, is someone who lost his belief in God early on. And in order to deal with his disillusionment, he was drawn to poetry and sort of sees poetry as a replacement for belief in God. And in his personal experience, it's the creation of poetry and it's viewing life through a poetic lens, gives some sort of meaning to the nothingness that is life. Um, Going into the poem, so first stanza, one must have a mind of winter to regard the frost in the boughs of the pine trees covered with snow. So in order to sort of imagine winter as this desolate, miserable place, you have to have already have a mind of winter. You have to have a preconceived notion of what winter is and that it's gloomy and bad. Um, and you know you've been in the cold a long time. You've gotten cold and uncomfortable, and that's why you're deciding that this winter landscape is negative. Um, and the verbs he used, behold, regard, these are verbs that sort of project meaning onto something. And then after the semicolon, he starts to talk about the sound and thinking of misery and how in that present moment there's actually sort of different things going on. So so here he goes on to talk about the sound of the land in the same place. And in the last paragraph is the one I struggle with the most, but I'm going to give my own interpretation of it, which I don't know that's true, but I'm just going to give it. Um, and that is that for the listener who listens in the snow, I think that is a snowman, but it also can be a man who understands this notion of perspectivism. Um, and it's nothing himself because he's a snowman. He's got no human biases. He what he beholds is nothing that isn't there. There's nothing. He doesn't behold anything. He's only beholding the nothing that is, which is the sort of lack of objective meaning. And I also think there's something to be said for a snowman itself being something that, you know, when it's created out of these miserable cold objects, it gains personality. It becomes something a little more than cold and misery. Yeah.